All right. I am your host, Greg Gaub. This is Worldwide Slot Car Chat number 30. Why do I always forget every other week? 33, I think. Anyways, we have most of our regulars. We've got Leo, we've got Dennis, we've got Luff, we've got Steve. We've also got Mr. the Unicorn and Chris Walker, and I'm sure we'll get more people. As I normally do, start out with show and tell. And so I'm going to do a show and tell. I got a couple of cars this week from my local hobby store, 132slotcar.us, also known as Alan Smith's Slot Car Shop here in Tacoma. And you guys who've been watching and who've been participating already know that I love me some blue and yellow cars. So this is the one that's going to get the most derision because it's a fantasy car, but I don't care. I like fantasy cars, and it's blue and yellow, so it was an instant buy. This is the Skelextric Ratio, which is racing or something in some of the
Welsh.
It was it. Yeah, I don't know.
Welsh.
But this is their supercar, their own supercar design, and honestly, I think it's cool. It's just as supercar prototypey as any other supercar prototypey car has been for the last 50 years. So, and I've always wanted those things to come out in real life, but they never do. So at least now I have Skelextric's idea of a supercar. I'm going to go ahead and spotlight myself here. Never do that. There we go. Okay. So most of you guys have seen this in the catalogs already. Focus. No, it doesn't want to focus.
It's all right.
It looks a little bit. It looks a little bit like one of those cars that might have come out of what was it?
Cars.
Toy Story cars.
Yeah. It does look like a Pixar kind of thing.
Pixar car with the teeth at the front. Yeah.
Yeah. The initial release of this is a Joker car, so it's all purple and green and.
Oh, I remember that one.
And then some kind of Batman, a black LMP car that looks like Batman. So this is the cool. I think this is
Greg.
Delivery too. What was that? Go ahead.
Does it have working lights? Is it?
I don't think so. It's a super resistant car.
Yeah.
Put batteries to it, but I sincerely doubt that it has lights of any kind. It is a crash and dash car. It's designed for the kids to like it and smash it around. But you guys will probably like this next one better. I do believe it's a fantasy livery because it came out in a variety of alternate colors. This is the Revo Slot Martini Marcos in the yellow.
Nice.
So it's got Martini stripes, but it's in yellow. And of course, they made the same car in green and red and like
white
6 other colors. So you can have a one-make IROC race or whatever. Mm-hmm. And
do the new Marcoses have the wide tires at the back?
I don't know.
Yeah,
can you tell?
they do. Yeah,
it looks wider than the front, and they stick out from the hubs a little bit. But yeah, I like me some Revo Slot, and the Marcoses are nice and low and wide, so they should
work well.
Nicely.
They do run well. It's a very nice car.
Yeah, the other Revo Slot I have is the Porsche. So when these came out, my analog club runs Revo Slot almost once a year at least. So I had to get me one of these, and I also pre-ordered the Corvette. There's a new Corvette. No, not Corvette. Viper coming out that's got mostly yellow and blue. So I pre-ordered that, which doesn't come out until later this month, I believe. So that's my show and tell. Anybody else got any show and tell, or want me to?
I have a quick show and tell.
Go for it.
This again is probably most interesting for Dennis.
We love your guys' stuff.
And this relates to a fix for your Polycar Ferrari 312. Hang on.
We're hanging. There we go.
Okay, if yours is like mine, Dennis, you can control the axle pretty easily up and down with the grub screws.
Yeah.
but there's certainly a lot of fore and aft movement in there.
Uh-huh.
So you get sort of a steering effect, which is actually surprising, actually worse on the straights where the whole axle wobbles left and right and tries to steer the thing. So I thought of a way to get rid of that. I got one more, which is the fix. And the fix is right here.
The fix is in, is it?
The fix is in, man.
Does the app that you're viewing these pictures in, does it have a next and previous button somewhere?
No, they're all over the place.
Oh, dang.
Is that up?
Yep.
Uh-huh.
That's one of those reduced diameter bushings from Ernie.
Yeah. Oh, so it fits inside of the plastic.
It fit right inside the plastic housing.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Maybe 2 file strokes at best.
On the plastic to clear it. Mm-hmm.
And I left it just a snick so it would move, so the bushings wouldn't bind up and stuff like that.
Okay. That's cool.
But it's like a solid axle now, and the car is a light is better because of that.
Oh, okay. Cool. Thank you.
No problem.
All right. I've got a little bit of show and tell.
Good.
As well. I think I showed you this body before, but this is the chassis for it. I think the body that was is this one. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
It's I think a Skelextric body originally that a friend of mine painted. Guy down in San Diego, and I've just finished building the chassis for it, and so that's the chassis that goes into it.
What's that for?
For him, for fun.
Oh, okay.
But you could run that in some of the hard body classes that are run at the local commercial raceway.
Yeah, that's got sponge tires on it.
Sponge tires all the way around. Yes, those are the Scale Auto, I think Procom 3s or Procom 4s.
Right.
On the back, and those hard ones on the front. The nice part here was because it's a Scale Auto body, it already had body mounting posts down the sides, and I managed to use those again to mount the chassis.
Perfect. Gorgeous.
Yeah, came out pretty nice.
Gorgeous.
Haven't run it, of course, but I think it'll run pretty good.
Do you run cars a little bit before you ship them back to somebody?
Generally, if it's 1/32 scale cars and I'm building them here, and they're the kind of thing that I can run on my track, I'll always test them before I send them back.
Well, you can run 124s in the middle lane, right?
Yeah, I can run it, but I won't ever find out about any of its performance because of 2 reasons. Number one, the thing's going to be way too fast for the short track that I have. That's a 47 or 50,000 RPM motor in there, right?
Oh, wow.
Number two, the foam tires, unless I juice them up with something, are not going to grip on my track anyway. So I don't bother with foam tire cars on my track.
But you just stick a little power to the brakes just to make
sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I do that anyway. Put a power supply on it to check the gear mesh and things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what came out. Finished mounting it up today. That one was this morning. The next one, great. I'm busy with the next one already.
It looks gorgeous. Do you put some kind of finish on your brass just to make sure it doesn't patina?
No.
No.
This one, when I'm done building, I have a little abrasive brush in my Dremel that I brush the whole thing and clean it up, and then I pop it in my tumbler, and I'll tumble it. This got tumbled for 5 or 6 hours, and then I'll photograph it right after that. But no, I generally don't. Some guys like to put something on there. There's a friend of mine in England he's in England, who would take a thing like this and he would put that clear adhesive clear like shelving paper or shelving plastic you cover all the brass with that.
Huh.
And it works pretty well for him, but I'm not into that amount of work. Not by any manner of means.
And you wouldn't want to spray
I like them
on.
when they pick up a little bit of patina after a while.
You probably wouldn't want to spray anything on it because then that might get places it shouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really haven't tried that. It's easy enough just to get a little brass or metal polish on it afterwards, or some Scotch Brite just to clean it up again.
Do most of your customers are most of your customers already familiar with the fact that it's not going to be that shiny after a little while?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Anybody complain about it at you?
No.
Okay.
No.
I
get guys asking me about tumblers every now and then because they want to retumble them and things like that. But most of the guys who buy them know that they're going to patina after a bit.
I mean, that's not going to fit in your $35 Amazon tumbler. What kind of tumbler do you use?
I have a Thumblers AR12. Tumblers are well known amongst the guys who do their own reloading of cartridges and bullets and things like that. And of course, amongst people who do rock tumbling for gemstones or semi-precious gems and things like that. So it's a cylindrical tub that just rotates, and you put a bunch of tiny little ceramic pellets in it, cover that with water, put a little bit of soap in it, put the chassis inside it, tumble the whole thing for 4 or 5 hours, and they come out like that.
Cool.
Yep.
So Thumbler's like it sounds, like your thumb, and then
except without the B. THUMLER''S.
Okay, that's why I asked.
And there are a couple of places you can buy them. I buy the media and the soap that I use from a place called Buffalo Arms. They have they're in outfitters and sportsman's supply, and they have like a package deal of 5 pounds of the media plus a jar of this super soap that they use. It's just a very, very concentrated soap, more concentrated than dishwashing soap or things like that.
I was going to say that your typical dishwashing soap is mostly
that
water.
works too. I mean, that works fine, but
you're paying for water.
The stuff is better.
Yeah. Cool. We might have to have you show off your tumbling stuff at some point.
Yeah, I could do that too.
I mean, I'm gonna ping you in December.
How do I get out of here?
Just there you go. That'll work.
Okay.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Dennis.
You're welcome.
I got one here.
What you
I've
got?
been looking for a Model A sedan, but I can't find one. So this is as close.
Hold it up in front of your face. There you go.
A roadster pickup.
Oh, nice.
Put a fly motor pod under it. Sorry, the lighting's pretty bad here. Anyway, it runs good.
So you used a model kit and you put a fly motor pod into the model kit chassis?
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. It handles really well. It looks top heavy, but it's not.
No, it looks cool. I like it.
Yeah, model bodies are pretty light.
Yeah.
Nice. Thanks, love. Anybody else got something they want to show? Oh, Leo, go for it.
I might as well represent the rally side of things.
Here we go.
Lancia Delta S4, which is the mid-engine version of the Delta. I'm not sure how familiar you are in the USA with these cars, but this is Delta S4 by SRC, and SRC do two versions. Is that right? Yeah. This one's inline, and it's got four-wheel drive with rubber bands. Can you see that? So that's quite good. It's fairly simple chassis, although it does have adjustable suspension. Oh, maybe you pull the chassis out. It's kind of like the slotted adjustable chassis, although it's not magnetic, it's just coil springs. And you can see it sits very low on the track. You can see there's a ground clearance.
I was going to say, what kind of suspension is even going to do any? It's got spring suspension, like a fly truck, maybe.
I'm not sure what the fly truck suspension is like, but probably yes.
They're basically coilovers. They look like coilovers.
Yeah, same sort of thing. Yes. So
Ninco used to have those too.
Sorry, Ninco. My bad. You're right.
Yeah.
Brain fart.
SRC do two versions of this. This is the sort of fully detailed version with a proper interior and things like the ducts for the intercoolers in the back window and things. And they also do a racing version, which has a flat tray interior, although it has heads and things, obviously. Sort of a lightweight, vac-formed interior. And it doesn't have, well, this comes with the extra auxiliary lighting, which I've not fitted. But the racing car, the chrono version, as they call it, is a much more reduced version. It has, I think it has different tires from this one. This one has alloy wheels, but more representative tires, whereas the racing ones, well, I think it's the racing ones sort of the sort of rubbery front wheels. But yes, so, oh, sorry, I keep pulling it away from the camera, don't I? So yes, had this for about a month or so when they came out, and they've now introduced, this is the Monte Carlo Rally version, and they've now introduced RAC, which is the UK Rally GB. So they've introduced that, so I'm waiting for that to arrive next.
Nice.
But it's quite nicely detailed, and you know, for effectively, you know, almost a competitive car. And I see the Cronus version is a competitive slot car, and it's very well detailed, even though it is that sort of that level of production.
So, always love those Martini liveries.
Yeah. Yes.
We saw it really clear earlier. It was not nice.
It wasn't. It worked earlier.
Yeah, I've loved Martini since I was a kid. Not because of racing, because in my youth, Transformers, the transforming robot toys came out, and one of the very first was the Martini Porsche 935 Turbo number 4 that never actually it like qualified, and then they changed the nose and stuff, so it wasn't even the same car in the race. So you never see that specific model made as a slot car because it never actually raced. But for whatever reason, the toy company chose slant nose, round fenders, not the Moby Dick fenders, but the round fenders, and a tall spoiler in the back. No slot car manufacturer has ever made that specific car. And if anybody sees it, I will pay top dollar for that slot car. I had to get I think it was Tamiya, made a 1/25th scale model kit of that specific car with the right livery and everything. And I ended up asking a close friend to put it together, because I suck at putting together cars and decals and everything. And he put the model together, and we stuck a Scale Auto 1/24th chassis under it so that I would finally have a slot car version of that very specific car. But I would love a 1/32nd scale, and nobody has made it. I've had friends all over the world sending me pictures of 1/32nd scale Martini Porsche cars of so many varieties, but they never have the right combination of slant nose, round fenders, and tall spoiler. It's always 2 of the 3 or 1 of the 3. And it's like, sorry, bro, here's a picture of what you're looking for. Because I can send you pictures all day long of what you're looking for, but it just hasn't been done. So any slot car manufacturers out there, wait a minute, apparently I'm the only person in the world that wants this slot car, so never mind.
Was that a Matchbox kit?
Did it Matchbox
do it? Well, I think that Matchbox in the UK did a slant nose, not as a slot car, just as a 1/32nd scale kit.
Ah, okay.
AMT done it.
If you see that, let me know. I did find an HO scale car. It wasn't in the Martini livery, but it was the right body shape.
Yeah.
It was like some orange thing. It might have been a fantasy livery, but I found an HO, and now I have a 124. So now I got to get a 132nd. I'll dig up the picture and show you guys later if you really care. Scott, what you got?
The other brand, the Matchbox kit that Leo mentions, is very good. It was sold here under the AMT name as well as Matchbox. It was co-marketed.
So if I look for an AMT 935 turbo, I might
AMT 132nd 935. They may still show up. I'm sure I've got a couple in a box somewhere. I'll try and dig one up.
Right.
You'll make me a happy camper if you dig one up, or send me a link. I mean, I'm willing to give a paint job a go, but I'd sooner send it off to somebody who'd do a better job than me. Yeah. But there's tons of chassis I can stick under a 136.
Greg, I've just found something. Is it this one?
That's it.
Nope. That's the Moby Dick fenders.
Oh, okay.
I'll go ahead and bring up the one that I'm thinking about here. Give me a second. Chat amongst yourselves.
Greg, have you tried Beta Classics?
If you can dig up a picture and show me, dude, I've been on the lookout for this for years.
It's Beta Classics are a company in the UK. They do the Lexan bodies. They also do the fiberglass ones. So I don't know how to get my camera to work.
No worries. If they're 1/32nd scale, then
yeah, they do 1/32nd, 1/24th, the lot. But Beta Classics, it's called. If you Google Beta Classics, it's BETTA and then Classics, and they bring up a list of all the bodies they do. They range right back, going yonks.
I'm just trying to find my picture here. Oh, I should make it easier for myself, really. Of course, I made it hard to find. Oh, wait, here we go. Nope, that's the wrong one.
Oh, there you go.
That's pretty close. Oh, somebody sharing something? Or was I sharing something?
That's all right. I figured out how to get the camera to work.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, I found my picture, so I'll go ahead and share that once I bring it up in an actual program that will look good. Open with. Okay, let's zoom in on that.
We got some interesting attendees today. There's a Portals 999 and a Portals 888.
I think that's the same person. He just
and two versions of Slothead too.
Slothead's here. We got two Slotheads?
Twice.
Yeah, two Slotheads. Okay, well, I found my picture.
Okay.
He and his alternate personality.
So that's what you're looking for.
Oh,
Pay very close attention to slant nose, round rear fenders.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
It doesn't go straight back.
As opposed to the ones we were looking at.
Yeah. I call those the Moby Dick because the Moby Dick cars tend to have those long ass rear fenders.
I forgot what fenders relate to in the USA.
Wings.
No, fenders.
These
fenders are mud guards. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or wheel arches.
Wheel arches. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing that I found.
Okay. So Greg, sorry, I was a bit late, but I do have you've seen the kit that's similar though, right? That has the not the rounded rear fenders.
Oh yeah, I've had multiple cars that are not quite this, but because of my youth and what my first exposure to this car was, that's the one that I want, not a almost there. It's like the uncanny valley. The closer it is, but not quite there, the more pissed off I am about it.
This sounds like a job for John Kitt, you know. Get hold of the almost there one, and get him to make a mold, and then
Yeah,
adjust
I've
the
got-
rear
I've got-
fenders and cast you a resin on it.
In fact, yeah, if you want, I can go get the kit that Leo was talking about. I've got a few of them.
Scott, is this the one that you were talking about? Is this the match?
Yeah, I can. Can you give me 1 minute? I'll go get it.
Yeah,
Go ahead and look. Scott was saying he had this car. Is this what you were thinking of, Scott?
Well, no, it's the rear arches are different. It's the one that Dennis pulled up.
Yep.
But boy, I cannot believe that, just the fender arches would be that horribly difficult to try and make.
Yeah.
The wing might be more of a challenge.
You're talking to Mr. I don't do shit without a 3D printer, man.
Well, there you go, Mr.
I'm blaming the
3D
world.
printer.
I'm blaming the world and me.
Oh, okay. You get your nifty scanner. One of those. I've been kind of eyeing that Soul or whatever scanner.
Me too.
For just this sort of purpose.
I think Portals is the one on Slotform. He's building a scanning platform. Works with an app on your phone and takes pictures and.
Yeah, I haven't seen one done with a phone yet that I'd trust a body on.
They all work off photogrammetry. So it's the same end result.
I can't even take good pictures with my phone.
Ooh.
Hi, Greg. Yeah, sorry, just talking about photogrammetry, I had something that very quickly I'd like to show you. It's what's been on the 3D.
Yeah. I think I was talking about your thing.
Yeah. The camera on my laptop's been taped up for years for various reasons. You can buy on the internet for $1 people's webcams. So but I was going to try doing it very briefly on the phone. So if I try hitting the share button on the phone, and this will be quite quick. It may work, it may not work. So let me try. So this would come under the 888.
If you show us your crotch, I can always edit it out.
Well, let me press the share button and see what happens. Start video.
Now we see your camera.
With your,
All right, I'm gonna look at
hand in
John's
front of
picture.
the camera,
He's got a
yeah.
car model. Let me spotlight that. Nope, look at the fenders.
The rear fenders, yes.
Yeah, he's
Right. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. The fenders are not correct, but that's easy to fix.
Is that 1/32nd?
Yep.
Yeah.
And just to show you how easy it is to fix this version. Welcome to John Kitt's hobby store.
Combine multiple versions. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. So Revell came up with exactly the same one. Right, 1/32nd scale.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's a multi-piece body.
Oh.
Yes. 1 moment, please. They show us the body and you will see what I mean, yeah?
Jawohl.
Yes, it's a German car, so I thought I would try speaking like this, and you know what? It's working.
And now last ink.
You've been having too many wiener schnitzels.
So I assume you're going to show me that it's got the round rear fenders.
No, this one has square butt, you see. A little bit of work, yeah? You see, it's a multi-piece body, so it's actually fairly easy to modify into a round.
Gotcha. It's not a giant one piece that you're going to.
No, you see, like the two sides of the cars are here. So all you have to really remanufacture is the rear piece on each side.
Send me an invoice.
Sorry, you want one?
Yeah, send me an invoice, man. Let's do this thing.
This is what you would like? Really? That's easy.
Yeah, it's easy.
John, I haven't looked at the AMT kit in forever. Is that not the same as the AMT kit?
Oh, yeah, I think it's all the same. I think the Revell, the Matchbox.
Matchbox, AMT,
Yeah, my memory is that the AMT one's all blown up like that too.
Yeah. And I think it's the same kit that was remarketed by different companies. Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't have the skills to model it myself, and I'm not interested in developing those skills right now.
Okay.
So anybody who has
amazed
the
what you
skills
can
and
do with
wants
a
to do
little
it,
PVC pipe and a file and some putty.
that's an HE double hockey
And
stick
some-
no from me.
Patience is the secret, isn't it?
As you can see, I'm pretty.
a
I'm
£6
pretty good with
club
that.
hammer should do it.
And the key is you can never mess it up so bad that you can't just cut it out and start over. It's like working with wood. It really is.
Yeah, I think
you want to give it a
Waffles
try
got
too,
his
Scott? I'll
pictures
let you tackle that.
If you honestly believe that, I'd really like to see some of your woodworking projects, because I've screwed up some wood beyond repair, and I do custom work.
Well, I keep it pretty simple. I'm not building cabinetry.
Or guitars, right?
All right, looks like Carl's ready to show off his scanner. I'm going to spotlight him. You go ahead and start talking there, Mr. Man.
Okay, yeah, this is a little tricky because I'm trying to do a few things at once. So essentially, it's an Arduino. I know the focus isn't great here. So what I should do is just reset the Arduino.
Yep.
You can see over here, this is all 3D printed. There's a 3D gearing, there's a small gear, there's a small holder for the servo motor, and you can see the case. If we come back down here, this is controlled by a joystick you can see over here. So I can go between, it's not focusing really very well. Let me try turning this light out, see if that makes any difference. No, that's worse. Okay, so we have a choice between photogrammetry.
Just tell us what's on the screen.
Yeah, okay, so let's go for the photogrammetry. What I can essentially do is select that, tell it to take, for example, 200 pictures. I don't know how well you can see that on the screen. The lighting here is pretty poor. So I'm bumping it up to 200 pictures right now. And then what I do is I click the start button. And over here, you can see the gearing moving around very, very slowly off the stepper motor. And you can also see the servo motor pressing. Now, what that presses, it's not put in at the moment, is this, which is a small Bluetooth receiver that you can use for gaming or taking pictures remotely via Bluetooth. So that fits into the chassis and takes the pictures. So essentially, you can choose between 0 and 200 pictures. I posted some stuff before in photogrammetry with pretty mixed results, to be honest. So I'm hoping once I get all this kind of minified and put into the box, that might get slightly better results. It's actually very straightforward. It's a 3D printed stuff. It's a cheap £7 Arduino. It's a little bit hassle to get that working because you download specific drivers because it's a cheap Chinese clone. You can see the buck converter, which is essential. That just essentially takes the 12-volt input from here and gives you an additional 5 volts, which the servo motor and the stepper motor need. And you can see the actual controller there for it. So what you actually do when this is all working, two-handed, is you pull the lid over. The lid sits on top. Now, what I don't want to do is to press this down, because once you press it down, it's kind of difficult to remove. And you can put the card on top.
So it basically turns the platform a specific amount and takes a picture with your phone. Does it have some way to help you take pictures from higher and lower? Like, does the phone holder have a high position?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, all you use is a tripod, and you can bump the tripod up a little bit. It really depends what software I guess you're using. I've used mainly Measure in the past, again, with kind of mixed results. But it does the job. It's a little bit fiddly getting right in there, getting the controller in there so it hits every time. But I have had it working kind of quite successfully. So as I said, the next steps are to kind of minify it and kind of see how we go from here. I also have a couple of other extra options. So if I just quickly reset this again. Now, you won't be able to see that on the screen. Hang on, let me just do that once more. This is all cobbled together with DuPont cables, so it's not...
Yeah, you'll get it all tucked in there.
Yeah, I'll get it all tucked in. So here's a cinematic one, for example. So I just drill into that and put the motor speed up to, say, 17 and start it. You'll see now that the motor turns. And that'll do, I've told it to do one exact turn at the moment. So if you're wanting to My stepdaughter's interested actually because she's looking to do this for jewellery, just to take very, very short, consistent kind of videos. As long as it's well lit and you have a decent phone camera, it works pretty well. So that's the second mode it has, and very, very quickly, reset this again. The third mode you have. There we go, you can just about see that. Is manual control. So now, by me using the joystick, which I'll try and get into the picture, I can move it left or clockwise or right anti-clockwise. So what I plan to do is to upgrade the stepper motor and make it a little bit faster. And I'm also thinking of putting a record arm player and a stylus on it, but that's something for another day. But yeah, yeah. What impresses me the most, and let's let me pull this off. Let me unplug the whole thing first. I need to pull this off. This is a 3D print. Incredibly impressed me because the whole thing just spins round, and there are very small, you won't be able to see the picture, there's very small lugs that sit in between it. So that all came off as one piece.
Oh yeah, print in place.
Yeah, and I have to admit that, you know, it kind of blew me away.
I love that. Yeah, there's a lot of really cool print in place stuff out there.
Yeah. So anyway, so there we go.
Yeah. So when it comes down to it, you know, if, most 3D scanners are essentially photogrammetry helpers. As long as the camera and the object are stationary, and then the object is the only thing that is moving, then the photogrammetry works a lot better. Or at the very least, the only thing that's moving is the camera. like one of the videos that you often see is a statue being photographed for photogrammetry, and so the statue doesn't move, right? So the arms never move, even the slightest bit, because it's a statue. If you try to do the same thing with a person, if you don't get enough pictures fast enough and they move enough, even if they're being as still as possible, then the model's even, you know, worse than it would be if it was a statue. And then if you're moving your camera too, for example, I tried this whole idea with the latest mesh room a year ago now, actually, I think it was. Because it was like, oh, you know, mesh room and in a photogrammetry, all you got to do is take a bajillion pictures and, you know, make sure your subject is, you know, still like a statue and it'll work. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. I'm going to try this. So I was talking to my family about it. We were all meeting for Christmas, and my sister was like, oh, that sounds great. Let's give that a try. So we go down to an empty room and she just stands there in the pose she wanted. And I basically just went around her and just like, picture. I had like 200 or 300 pictures of her. And she did a fantastic job not moving at all. But obviously there was enough motion in her and my pictures that the end result was unusable. I got it all into mesh room and there was just kind of this sister-like blob in the middle of the room and then room-like stuff around her, because it's basically trying to do a three-dimensional point map of everything in every picture that it can correlate between the pictures. So if you can eliminate other things, right, you're going to want to put that turntable in just a white space and, you know, have the, I mean, you could probably have some of the turntable in there too, but then no other motion of anything, and then have the car do its full 360 rotation with 200 pictures. Absolutely, the more pictures, the better. And then if you can get a higher viewpoint and do another 200 pictures of a 360 view, and then get like a low viewpoint of another 200 pictures, then you'll have a relatively accurate three-dimensional shape that you can then cut the bottom off and turn into a hollow chassis. You know, you'll have to cut the walls out because it'll make
yeah. No, I totally agree with what you're saying. I did play about this before. Again, I have a very, very quick video here, which some of you might have seen before. I think it's.
I mean, I'm talking to the viewing audience as much as our current viewers.
Can you see my desktop?
Yeah. I think you posted that on Slot Forum. Yeah,
so it's quite a quick video. Now, this was done very shoddily and by hand, but to be honest, I was actually relatively impressed with what it can
That's
do.
pretty good. Yeah.
And if you watch it, when you zoom in, some of the level of detail you can get is, you know, it's pretty good.
Now, wouldn't lighting also be really important as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There are other scanning technologies that use like projected patterns onto the object so that it gets a more accurate pins.
I found meshing quite awkward to use. I think Autodesk Fusion now have their own product, and I think there's a 30-day trial evaluation available for that. So
Autodesk is working on a photogrammetry.
Yeah, it's just the specific software they have for photogrammetry. So I may give that a go because meshing was a bit hit and miss, and there was a lot of manual intervention to be done to make it anything usable from it. But hey ho, I mean, you know,
isn't it open source, Meshroom?
Meshroom's free, but I think it's the same people.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll get better. That's one of the things that I like about open source things, and why I'm big on Prusa for printers is because you never have to worry that the product that you get is no longer going to be usable at some random time in the future. If it's an open source and popular, then there's going to be techies out there that are going to keep it going forever. It's never going to deprecate because you're going to have people keeping it going because they have access to the source and they have the hardware and they want to keep it going.
So I think what I want to, sorry, I was just going to say finally, Autodesk Fusion, the same people that make that also have a little bit of software. I can't remember the name just off the top of my head. And it costs to buy. It's a 33-day evaluation. So I'm going to, once I've minified the turntable, it's all working as I want, I'm going to have a little shot with that and let's see how we go. It might be easier. Meshing, I think, is a little bit complicated for what it is. So there we go. It's all good fun, and maybe at some point we'll get some sort of body shell that's usable. Biggest issue I have is trying to learn something like Autodesk 360 Fusion. It's
it can only get better. You know, it's got to get better from here.
Yeah. I'm quite adept to Photoshop and using programs like that, but when it comes to 3D modeling stuff, it's a completely new learning experience.
Well, I was going to say it looks similar to the type of software that's used for deep fakes when you do videos.
I mean, I'm sure there's some similar technology involved, you know, face mapping and replacing pixels and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. What was the question, Scott?
That Soul scanner that I was talking about, the way they deal with background issues that you were discussing is that it's provided with a tent basically that goes over the object being scanned, you know, and it folds out. It's like these little kids play tunnels or whatever that you get for the grandkids.
Yeah, photo booth basically.
And that's how they eliminate any background clutter. Is it's just, you know, a blank inside of a little room that you've created for your scanned object.
How much is
the camera device?
Are they selling some kind of complete turntable booth camera kit?
Yeah, that's what it appears to be, is a pretty much all-in-one package.
What are they asking for that kind of thing?
I want to say it's like $600 or $700.
That's what people would want.
I was kind of looking pretty seriously at getting one, but then week before last, the wife told me to go buy a car, so I'm gonna have to wait a couple of months to recharge the bank account.
Well, the real question is, what are the results? Like, if they provide their own software and it provides good results, then it's
the results that they were showing, not the Soul people, but other people, reviewers were showing, were acceptable. I mean, I could certainly work with it. I mean, it looked pretty reasonable to me. You know, and any loss of detail that was there, I could recreate. You know, make the door handles more clear and that sort of thing. You know, and any etching for the door, you know, door frames and that sort of thing. You know, the hard part, as always, is going to end up being the stupid windows. You know, you end up, if it's like a 24th scale model kit that you're scaling down, you could paint the window black or something, and or maybe even stick some vinyl in it, I guess. I don't know. I haven't done it, obviously. But
I mean, if you're prepared to take the end result and manipulate the mesh that it creates by moving points or you know, using other software to manipulate the model to make it better, then I see no reason to spend $700 when you can get something pretty darn good with what Portals was showing off with his printed Arduino based kit and a cell phone.
I'd have electrocuted myself on the third connection.
It's difficult. It's difficult to electrocute yourself.
That is not in my skill set.
Yeah, it's 12 volts. You're going to burn out the power supply before you hurt yourself.
I would have beaten it with a £2 club hammer. I wouldn't got nowhere near it.
It's only 12 volts if you use the buck converter. Otherwise, it's 5 volts. You can lick it and you won't even feel anything. The only other thing I say is that cost in total about £10. I had a lot of other components kicking about from an Arduino kit I bought many years ago. So all I really had to buy was a new Arduino, £7, the buck converter, £2, and I think that was pretty much it.
I mean, even if you're having to buy it all the whole build of materials, you're still only talking about $50 or something like that.
You can get it cheaper actually. If you go I posted the original YouTube video of the guy who created this. If you go on, I forget the name of the website, it's something or other. Yeah, you can actually buy all the components for about £20.
Yeah, especially if you're willing to wait a month or so for it to come from China.
Well, yeah, but they also appear to have European. I think they also ship to Netherlands, so you can get a lot of components a lot quicker.
Yeah, I mean, it's cheap. The components are cheap. You know, you're basically the money you're saving is because you're spending your time to put it all together. You know, if you were to make one of those for a dude, how much would you charge for it? It's not going to be the cost of parts. It's going to be more than that.
Well,
it took about 2 hours.
Really, if anything,
very quick.
Scott?
That's true, really, of anything, though.
Yep.
You know, just as you're not wanting to develop your skill to model what have you, I have this much interest in learning how to wire stuff together and that. So I'm willing to pay $600 or whatever it is for somebody to wire it all together, and I put it on my desk, play around with some settings for a while, and maybe have a little bit of a learning curve with using it. But I'm not interested in recreating the wheel.
I'll do it for $60.
I was gonna say Portals will sell you his.
I have to ask: is Scott Smith the noisy muse?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
Haven't seen you in a long time, Loof.
Oh, there you are. Last time I saw you, you didn't have a beard or glasses.
That's probably true. It's been a couple of years.
Yeah. How you doing?
Very fine. Yourself?
Sorry?
Very fine. Yourself, sir?
You're still in Idaho?
No, we moved to Montana from Seattle.
Montana, okay.
Yep.
But you're still there?
Oh yeah. I'm stuck here for life.
Yeah, Big Sky.
Have you found any slot car racers?
Well, Jim Hansen, but I knew him before. But Montana being the size it is, he's merely 5 hours one way.
Yeah.
And that's only about halfway across the state.
He's come to visit us.
Well, they won't let us across the border, love.
No, I mean before. He came up a couple of years ago.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
He got a plane, not a car.
Yeah, it's fun. All the people in the UK are going like, that's insane. They think 30-minute drive is a long way. That's local for us.
If I want to play with slot cars, I got to get in my car and drive for 5 hours in whatever inclement weather conditions there are. And in Montana, if it ain't 100 degrees, it's minus 30.
I have about a 2-minute walk up the garden to the garage, and it's in there.
I keep meaning to get a track built, but I have not gotten it done yet. And you'd look long and hard to find a nicer track than Jim's. I absolutely love to drive on his track.
I've seen pictures of it. It looks good.
All right, now I got to see pictures of Jim's track. Where do we
got to get? Dennis says we got to get Jim on these chats, but he just, I don't know, he just isn't overly interested.
I've been trying every time I speak to him. I'll see if I've got a couple of photographs of the track. I think I have somewhere. Hold on.
What kind of track is it?
I've got.
It's routed wood.
Yeah,
it looks like a real truck.
He got
2-lane.
He got Gary Girding, I think it was, or I think it was Girding.
That sounds right.
Or Steve Ogilvy, one of the two of them. One of the commercial track
I think it was
races.
Gary Girding.
He got them to do the basic routing for him, and then he basically built the track himself. Let me see if I can find it now. I've got to go back.
Well, of course, his studio is absolutely a facility beyond belief up above his house there in the wilds of Florence, Montana.
He lives just south of Florence, Montana. According to him, he lives at the very end of a long dirt road. And it's kind of up in the hills, and they have a really nice house.
With a moderate vertical component.
With a moderate vertical component, yeah. And then he has this barn studio place. Found him. All right. Let's see.
He said 2-lane routed. That's rare.
It's 2-lane routed, yeah. Hold on. Here we go.
Oh, wow.
Oh, I think I remember seeing that get built.
And
online.
He built it like a modern Formula One style track in terms of the curbings and the pit lane. The pit lane on its own is an absolute work of art because there are hundreds of figures in there. Let's see if I've got another. Oh, that's just an overall view. I thought I had more photos, but I don't right now. Let me go back to the other one. But in that pit lane, like right here on the end of the pit building, there's a little group of people, and it's an interview going on there, right, with a cameraman and I'm trying to remember, is it Lewis Hamilton or somebody like that? He actually has all these little figures that are replicas of specific people on there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a very nice track. It has this to the right hand side of the picture. The main straightaway is right up at the back, and it's at the highest level. And then you go along there from left to right across the back of that photo, and then just beyond where the photo ends, there's a right hand turn, and it starts to go down, and it comes downwards into this big round sweeping curve here.
And that sweeper is absolutely a delight to drive because that's where your time is made up and lost.
Yeah, it's wonderful. You get it.
Show that other picture again, Dennis.
The other picture is this one. So it's at the far end there.
Yeah.
You turn right just beyond the tree, and then it goes downhill and then through this big sweeper back the way.
It's probably a 120-degree turn.
Yeah. And then there's a couple of turns coming back.
Hit your little magnifier icon there up in the top right. Yeah.
Ah, there you go. How's that?
A little more.
A little more? I won't go anymore. That's
okay.
That's it.
That's better. Nice.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I think there's probably been some work done on it since I took these photographs, because this is like 4 or 5 years back when I was, 4 years back, I think, when I was last there. But it's really very, very pretty. But he is a man of some artistic talent, and he has a great eye. He was a professional photographer, so he has a great eye for these things.
It looks like it goes up a good 9 inches.
It does, yeah. It's quite a climb. Yeah. Nice. These S's here under the bridge at the bottom are all flat, and then it starts climbing through this section here before it gets up the top.
And that's kind of like a reverse corkscrew down over there.
And then a reverse corkscrew at that end into that big sweeper.
Yeah. And then a fairly tight turn behind where you can see that tree at the end.
Yeah.
It's a fairly tight turn, and then a 90 onto the front straight.
Mm-hmm. Does it run in both directions or only one?
He tends to run it in one direction. So you stand here on the right-hand side of the photograph, opposite the pits, and you're running from right to left on that straightaway. So you're going down the hill at that corkscrew and up the hill this end. I didn't ever run it the other way around that I can remember.
I don't think I have either.
Is it based on an actual track somewhere? No.
Recognize it, yeah.
No, it was just something that he decided to do. He actually had a Carrera track on that same frame at one stage some years ago that was also very, very nice. And at one point he had a 4-lane commercial style track that fitted right over the top of all of that. Oh no, that was underneath it, because this framework used to hoist into the roof of that studio where it's located, and then he could drop it down, and he actually had a 4-lane track in the roof. That's one of my mosquitoes again.
Did you get it?
I missed it. And but he sold that.
Well, that's a gorgeous track.
It's a very, very
beautiful.
Track. Yeah.
Are those trees wire?
I think so. Yes, wire and ground foam and so on.
Yeah, I'm having fun with games of mine at the moment.
But it's every bit as much fun to drive as it looks like. I mean, it is just absolutely a treat to drive on.
It looks nice. It looks like a great, because it has all the good. It has all the good stuff. I mean, you've got the nice long straight. You've got a couple of hairpins. You've got the sweeper down the hill, and yeah, I can imagine that would be a blast.
Yeah, it is a blast to drive it.
Good stuff. Thanks for
coming.
Okay.
All right. There you go. Give you back your screens.
Awesome. Anybody else got anything they want to show and tell or talk about or ask about?
We were talking about martini things earlier on, and martini liveries.
Yeah.
Many years ago, when I was still racing radio control cars, a friend of mine came to me with a 1/8 scale body that he said, "I want you to paint this for me," and it was this Lancia. And it took me maybe a month or 6 weeks to paint the thing, because everything was painted by hand. There's no decals on it at all. Fortunately, it was 1/8 scale, right? So it was, like a foot wide and 18 inches long or whatever they were. A bit more than that, maybe 2.5 kilogram car. But that was the first one I ever did with martini colors.
That was literally the first slotted car I bought when I first got into the hobby. I saw that as a slotted, and I'm like, I need a high-end car. That is a beautiful car. I bought that car.
Yeah, this guy commissioned it for me. The reason he commissioned it was because he was going to be racing in an event where the concours counted as part of the competition. And when he got the car, yeah, I like that too, Scott. But when he got the car, he took one look at it and he put it away. He said, "It's too pretty. I can't race that." I said, "But that wasn't the point. The point was you wanted to win this thing." He says, "I'd rather not win it than damage a body like that."
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So, yeah, the guy who commissioned it, I was a friend of his father's. He was a young guy who raced, and the young guy is now an older guy, and he's the chief mechanic for the Mahindra electric Formula E team, the Indian auto manufacturers. Anyway.
Small world, huh?
Yep. Small world.
That's cool.
I see Steve Hendrickson on today. I haven't seen Steve for a while. Hey, how you doing?
Pretty good. Pretty good, thank you.
Yeah.
Just enjoying the Pardon?
Got any recent prints you want to show?
God, I've probably done a dozen. This was the last one. I don't know how you can see this or not.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's the cheetah. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, that came out nice.
Hey.
A little crocel.
Cool. Yeah.
So that was fun. I always wanted that. Let's see. Working on the Can-Am Hussein right now.
Oh, nice.
That's a pretty rare little body.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And one other. What was it?
Did you say you printed that, Steve?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are all printed.
Boy.
And then a 612P, the early version before the wing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, don't talk to me about printed slot car bodies. Talk to Steve and Chappie Man, and just come on. Wow.
That's cool. That's looking good.
So that was
very nice.
Yeah, they're all printed.
Yeah.
And now I'm working
Can
on.
I ask how you printed these? Are these resin prints or back?
No, it's all 3D PLA.
Filament.
Now I'm trying to make the Cobra run decent. These top heavy Cobras. The Cobras, and it's kind of a fun story. It actually so much fun. It sounds like BS. My father had a friend named John Simonson in Minnesota. You guys will like this. And Simonson owned a bunch of in North Dakota. Simonson had a load of gas stations and was a car nut. And he bought, Shelby wins Daytona class in his coupe. He then brings them back to California. To him, they're more or less junk. They're going to get junked. He tells Bondurant, who of course drove one of them, that he should buy one of them from him, the one that won. So Bondurant buys that car from him for $4,000, okay, after Le Mans. Bondurant keeps it for 2 years and then decides he's going to do his driving school. So Bondurant puts it up for sale. John Simonson, Grand Forks, North Dakota, buys the car for $5,000. He restores it so it's streetable. And he lives maybe a block from my house, and I'm probably 14, 15 years old. And he gets it done. I take dates out in it. I drive it around the countryside. I take my brother, who's 4 years younger, for rides in it. This is the coupe that won Le Mans. You don't know what you have until years later. Years later, John puts it for sale, 78 in Road and Track for $12,500. Nobody gives a shit. Nobody buys it. Finally, a guy in Connecticut picks it up for $9,000 in the next year or so. He keeps it, he sells it to one other guy who I forget. Macom puts that exact car up for auction. You probably all remember that from about 4 or 5 years ago. And it sells for $22,500. And that's my story.
22.5 million, not 22,500.
I figured that the million was assumed.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that you were saying millions, not
But to drive that around, 14, 15 years old, whatever I was, for fun, is mind-blowing in retrospect. You know,
Steve, that sounds like Red Line 7000. You were the character, as long as you didn't put it in a ditch.
You don't know enough that, you know, to be dangerous. I mean, my dad was very involved in radio. We had two friends in those days. We're in the 60s here. The guys from California, these two that my dad had met when he was in med school, I think. These guys would have their race cars. They'd drive them around the country from track to track to track to track. These little airport tracks. And again, this is in Bemidji, Minnesota. And these guys would come visit us in Grand Forks. One of them had a 300 SL. The other one had a DB4 Aston Martin. And they would just show up driving around the country. The backs were full of tires. They would go to the track. They'd change the tires. They'd race for whatever the purse was that day. They drive to the next track. And this went on. They would show up every summer, you know, for several years. I mean, it was just such a different time.
It sounds like an Elvis movie.
Everything was like an Elvis movie. The first race car I ever drove was a Group H with a laying on its side Mercury outboard motor in it, built by a guy who worked for the factory Alpha team at one time. That was in Bemidji, Minnesota. And he ran a resort in the summer. I mean, this phenomenal car stories from those days.
I seem to remember that the other Cobra Daytona, the Cobra Coupe anyway, that Jim Russell of Rusket, who was one of the early slot car guys, he had one.
Well, he had actually, Dennis, he had the only one that was actually fully manufactured in the United States. It was the very first one that's in the Simeone collection right now.
Correct. Yeah.
And that one has a heck of a story because
yeah.
because of the dispute with Phil Spector.
Correct.
Right? Spector buys it from Russell when he's going out of business. Russell thinks he's in the chips because he gets $12,500 for the car and he only paid, I think, $3 or $4 grand for it.
They were just old race. They were just old race cars.
Well, that was the Shelby garage sale, right? When Shelby just went, "Oh, you got a year to live. I'm selling everything. I'm going to Africa." So what happens? Russell sells it to Spector. Spector gets so many speeding tickets. His lawyer says, "Sell the car. Or you're going to jail." Spector goes, "Sell it." He gives it to his gardener, right? And then the gardener and his wife have a divorce. She takes the car and hides it.
Sister,
I'm sorry. Right. Yeah. And hides the car for like what, about 20 or 30 years? And Shelby knew where it was. She wouldn't sell it to him. She wouldn't sell it to anybody. She wanted to give it to her neighbor. And there was the dispute. She passes away. The neighbor gets the pink slip and the keys for the car and the storage facility, goes, takes the car, realizes what it is. Then her family goes, "Oh, wait a minute. No, you can't have it." And then Spector, while he's on trial for murder, gets his lawyer to say, "Oh, wait a minute, Mr. Spector never sold the car." And the judge basically said, "Okay, hold on a minute. Let's just stop here. Spector, you're out of the deal. Like you have no claim on this car whatsoever." Between the neighbor and the woman's family, the judge basically said, "Look, you got a choice. We can be in litigation for years and this is going to cost you a heck of a lot of money, or find a buyer, split the money." And that's what they did. And that was Dr. Simeone.
And the part that I was going to talk about was the slot car related bit, because the guys, the pro racers, people like Howie Ursiner and Sandy Gross and others who raced on the East Coast, when one of them flew out to Southern California and Mike Morrissey picked him up at the airport in the Cobra and drove him back to the Rusket factory in that Cobra, in that Daytona.
Well, Jim Russell's son said that every time his dad started the car in the morning, because he used to drive it to work, all the kids would run out to see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure. Talking about that era, we lost one of those guys this week. Fellow by the name of John Sucres, probably one of the most famous names from that period of the mid to late 1960s, 1/24th scale pro racing era. He passed away this week.
Now, Dennis, did you ever race radio control against him as well?
No, I raced slot cars against him now, but he didn't really do a lot in radio control that I know of. He went into full-size drag racing, and he actually made his living as an engineer for AFX or Tomy or those guys, and he designed a lot of the modern HO slot cars that are on the market now. Can't hear you, John. Oh, there you go.
So wow, I didn't realize he did the HO stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was a big HO racer after he stopped racing 1/24th scale. Then he only came back to 24th scale maybe 8 or 10 years back, after we started the retro racing. And all of those old guys came back into it at that point. Old guys, I mean, old guys like us.
Didn't he also have a line of motors and motor components and stuff like that as well?
He was employed by Mura at one stage. Now, Mura was a motor manufacturer out of the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. George Mura, I think, and his brother. And they made a lot of motors. They were really good at that. They made very, very good stuff. It was in the days when American motors were the thing you wanted, because the Japanese stuff was junk. And they employed him. He actually raced for them as a racer, and they paid him a salary to go around the country racing. And it wasn't a small salary. It was tens of thousands of dollars a year in those days. And he made a lot of money out of that. And of course, he didn't actually do anything to the motors or with the motors apart from sign them, right? And so he used to sign all these things, and they had all these packagings with Sucre's signature and signed by John Sucre. You know, this was the Sucre signature motor, or this was this or this. They used it as a marketing thing, you know. But yeah, he was involved with that.
Flower power.
The pink Mura B cans with a flower sticker on the side was the first one of those.
We used to race them in this country, the Group 20s.
Yeah,
yeah,
sure.
Was that the one with 2 holes in it, or they had holes?
Yeah, the early B cans just had 2 holes. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it went to a big oval.
And it had a big square hole.
Yeah.
And then later on, they machined the top and the bottom to make it a little lighter, because the first ones had very thick cans. But the B can was a really bad design, because it was too flat, and the magnets weren't tall enough for the armature diameter, and they were just the wrong dimensions. It was too thick and too heavy. So they then went to the smaller, slightly taller, but smaller in diameter cans that they called the C can. And that dimension is still being raced to this day.
I got to ask that. Do you have any of those motors by chance?
Yeah, I do, but I'll have to go look for them.
I'm not going to go upstairs and get mine.
I mean, I recognize the Mura name, and I am not in that at all. And I've heard that name before.
We used to have the pinion inside the back end of the actual motor. Instead of having it out on the outside the bell housing, it'd be inside to get a real tight. Used to chop half of the actual motor case in a way to run them like that.
Ran it to get them short enough in a 1/32 scale car, so that you could.
Wait, you hold on. You put one of those in a 1/32 scale car?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and 1/24. We used to do the air wing 1/24 cars at Reed's, and that was 100-foot straight, and it had a hairpin at the end and a bank at the other end, and you get 4 of those cars go around together, and the whole bank moved.
And you feel the air move.
Yeah.
Well, but in a 1/32,
used to get in the morning, used to go in the evening, see who look up the ceiling, see who come out the bank and hit the ceiling.
But in a 1/32 scale car, those things must have just been flying.
Yeah, well, we used to change the armatures. We used to take the Group 20 armatures out and go Group 12s, or you even do your own little magic windings with coat hanger wire.
Coat hanger wire?
Coat hanger wire.
Well.
All right, you find some, Dennis?
Yeah, let me see what I've got here. Hold on a moment.
Digging in his treasure box.
Yeah, I swear I have a beacon somewhere here. There it is. There it is. Hey. This is in my box called Vintage Motors. And here we go. This is a Mura beacon motor. As you can see, it's quite flat and very, very wide, and it's difficult in this light. But it's pink. Has a little sticker on the side of it that says Mura.
Yeah, it is pink. You can see that.
Yeah, you can see the pink, I guess. All right, and it's an enormous motor, and to try and put that into a 1/32 scale car is really difficult. The one that followed it, which was the C-can, was a whole lot easier, because there's one in the back of a 1/32 scale car, right? That car comes out of 1976 or 7, somewhere around there. One of mine restored. Here's another one. We looked at this one a little while back. This is the one that Bob Ward built. And that's a C-can. So they're a little shorter and smaller, but yeah, that's what a B-can looked like. Before those, there was a D-can, which is even bigger.
Like
say again?
I said that the ones that my dad had, they were like house bricks. The same size as the Champions.
Yeah, that's a D-can motor. That's an old Revell motor. So it's not quite as not quite as big on diameter across the curved sides as the B-can was. It's a bit taller. And then of course there was that was the 16D, and then there was the big old where's one? No. It was the 36D, and I've only got a can in here, which is like this enormous lump of a thing, right?
Isn't that what Cox used, the 36?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
This is actually a Cox. This is a Cox one. The little sticker's still on it. I must have vandalized it for some other car at some point.
Now they put them in a Prius.
Yeah, you could just about, right? Yeah. Oh, there's some crazy motors from those days. That's a Pitman. A Pitman 6. What were they called? 6002.
Yeah, you haven't got a globe motor in there by chance, have you?
I don't actually. No, that's one of the few things I don't have. Got lots of other stuff.
Those were used for missiles, weren't they? The globe motor wasn't
Versatech. I think the Versatechs were used for
like attitude adjustment kind of thing.
Yeah, they were on like the vanes or something,
Servo motors.
elevators for guided missiles.
Yeah, servo motor.
Now the hammer's the attitude adjuster.
Oh, okay, sorry, but yeah, I thought they were like a military motor that someone stuck in a slot car and went, oh, they go good.
Yeah.
I mean, if it fits, right, somebody will do it.
Yeah.
I kind of enjoy those old things, you know, they're like the old what we call the old padlock motors.
Oh God, yeah.
Weren't they used a lot in drag racing, Dennis?
Yes. Yeah, they were used a lot in drag racing. One magnet this end, and then all these laminations to carry the magnetism to where the armature was on the back of the motor.
And I'm sure in the old days, if you used it by your television set, it wouldn't work.
The television set or the motor?
The television set, yeah.
No, I think so. I think the magnets on these things are so weak, if they got too close to the television, the motor would probably stop. those magnets are, there's nothing in them, man. They're metal, more of a fishing weight than anything else, a sinker. Yeah, so that's that.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you.
Wonderful history lesson there. What you got, Scott?
Coming back to the 3D printing stuff, I know I've seen Dennis express interest. Is anybody looking at Paul Miller's 3D Can-Am proxy challenge?
For sure, I'm in.
Yeah,
I forgot to look into it, but I
think
need
Steve
to.
will be in as well.
Is it on HRW or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And that he's as was indicated earlier, he's come up with a bunch along with Vlad from Australia, body files that they're very happy to provide to people to do these. And then there are some various chassis files, or I'm sure Dennis is designing his own. I'm thinking to give
Why
that
are you
a
sure
go.
Why are you sure about that?
Just because you're you.
It's just the body that needs to be printed, right?
No, the chassis needs to be printed as well, and they want you to print and they wish you to print the guide, although they will allow a commercially sourced guide.
Yeah. Is there Steve? You're muted, but talk to us about printed guides.
And we've got 25 bodies up there from various sources. Yes, from Nimrod in Australia are a bunch of them, and then a bunch of other places too. There's mixed feelings on a printed guide. I've never had a printed guide break, and we race as hard here as anywhere, and it's never happened. My video just go out?
No, you're good.
Okay. Chassis, we have some files. We have a nice file for an adjustable chassis. Their files are not an issue. Paul is right. Is one of the group here. So we put this thing together about a month ago to wait to see what the interest would be. What do I want to say about this? So we're just trying to get as many people in it as we possibly can. And, we really think it's going to be such an integral part of the future of this hobby. That's all there is to it. It is not a hardcore build the fastest car you can, balls to the wall, proxy. It isn't.
Oh, really?
And it isn't.
Oh, dear.
Okay. So
But,
I could go to this forum post and download a body, a chassis, and a guide, and print it on my Prusa, and throw some slotted parts in there, and be good to go.
Pretty much.
You sound like you're gonna win.
I mean,
Hey, Steve, what do you
You could always get Dennis to build it.
Don't
That's
get me
true.
wrong.
I'll send a bunch of printed parts down to. No, he's got his own printer. He's going to do his own.
Yeah, I'm going to print.
Yeah,
You've
just
got to
send him
print
a
your own.
file.
Dennis, don't get me wrong. I'm going to build the fastest 3D printed slot car I possibly can.
I mean,
Yeah, I was kidding, Steve. I was
And
kidding.
so
I
will
know.
Paul. You know. So the racing is, we just don't want to just purely stress the racing.
No,
You know, right now, let's get, let's just see what this can do within the boundaries of this hobby. Maybe is a better way to word it.
It certainly has motivated me enormously to get off my butt and actually get my printer working and to get my mind around some software. And so far already for me, it's fun.
I think so too.
Do me a favor. Why don't you guys do me a favor and grab the link to the most appropriate thread on HRW, slap it in the chat, and I'll put that as a link to in the video.
Okay.
So when I post this video to YouTube, in the description, there's going to be a link to people to click on and go to the specific thread that says the 3D printed proxy thread. Presumably there's one thread that has links.
There's one good thread. I'll get it. Don't worry.
Yeah, Paul has a thread up right now with the rules and the cars and all that. And then we just put the thread up today for the entry list.
Steve, what do you go by on the HRW website? Your nickname?
Racer 1H.
Well, I'm the jerk who said, maybe we need to cut down the number of bodies. I don't know if you read that in the thread.
There's no such thing as cutting down bodies.
And again, I love your idea, and I hope to participate. So again, I just apologize if I seemed like I was dissing on what you guys were doing. I was just thought, some of these guys are new to this. I've only printed a few bodies. Could you recommend one of the bodies in that list that's perhaps one of the easiest to print?
Easiest to print. First Can-Am Porsche. Oh boy, the Shadow Mark IIs.
I was going to say, can you print shadows on their back end? Brian, I know you've printed some cars on their back ends. Can you print the shadow on its back end?
I'm not overly about that. I just look again. I don't have the experience you do, Greg, on this.
No. Steve, talk to Steve.
What printer do you talk to get the file?
Just post which one you want to either Paul or me or Nimrod, and we'll send it to you. That's all there is to it. What printer do you have?
I have a Ender 3 Pro.
Oh, you're great. You know what I would do? I would send Paul a message and ask for his Cura settings.
Yeah, I've had some pretty good success with it.
Oh, then you're then you're fine. Okay.
But I'm looking for something, I got some from Nimrod, I think his 50 series Grand Prix he did. I think that was him. And,
that was him.
They have delicate little parts on them. Like, when I take it off the build plate, you're breaking mirrors off of it. And things of that nature. So I'm looking for something, a little delicate, if you would.
Yeah.
So I'm going to tell you, Brian, hold on a sec. So Steve, I know that you have a bunch of bodies and links and stuff. I have not read the rules, obviously, yet. So I know that Brian has designed some, let's say thingy style bodies. Can he bring his own bodies to the proxy?
As long as they have to be a Can-Am body, Can-Am or Group 7.
Does it have to be like precise? Like his thingies are very similar to a shadow. Some of his thingies are very shadow-like.
I have no way to answer what shadow-like means.
Okay. Well, for a guy who doesn't know about these cars so much, when I think of the shadow.
Well, why not? Yeah. We're trying to get, the inserts have to be... Read the rules. They're really pretty simple.
Okay.
I put the link up.
Yeah, I'll get the rules. I
The
just
rules were pretty good.
Lots of words.
I'm not interested in running my R's. I'm just curious to, you know, one of the bodies that might be a little easier to deal with, because again, I'm kind of new to that.
Yeah,
the stuff I probably wouldn't qualify. I mean, if I was.
Yeah, here you go. I'm going to spotlight Brian real quick. Steve, take a look at what Brian's showing up.
Yeah.
See, this is what we talk about. I'm not really interested in running these per se.
No. We're trying to get pretty close to realism. No.
Right. So I mean, that's
well. Like here's the shadow.
Okay,
the shadow here. This could.
Let me get you spotlighted. Come on. Back together. Okay. Spotlight. Okay.
Shadow doesn't get much simpler because, you know, it's square, it's easy to sand and smooth what you're going to be doing. It's only downside on the shadows, so it's, of course, the mirror's there. You know, that first Porsche, the 91710, was the first Porsche that ever was in the Can-Am. Is about as clean and simple as they come.
That's a pretty body too.
Yeah.
So when you printed that shadow, it was sitting on the build plate like a car sits on the ground, right?
Right, just like that.
Yeah. And so it had to have supports all over the place, right?
And a lot of supports inside of it. Yeah.
But no driver, no roll bar, no stacks, no mirror. Those were all added later.
Now, if you wanted to, I haven't taken a look at your file. Obviously, I can do that some other time. But if you were to stick it up on its back, would that print?
Would what break?
Would it print?
Would this print?
If you stuck it up pointing up.
Oh, it would, but it wouldn't be as good.
Okay.
It wouldn't be as good. We've tried all that. That's right. There was quite a bit going around for a while that was the way to do these things. I guess Paul and I don't agree, but that doesn't mean we're right. I mean, you know, if guys are printing them like this, I know Nimrod used to send all his files out vertically, and we'd drop them down and print them. But I think that really applied to these cars earlier because the hardest thing to print for a long time were the flat top surfaces for some reason on models. And now with Kira's settings and so on, that isn't an issue anymore. So, I mean, printing has gotten pretty smooth. I mean, this just came out today and pulled the supports. It hasn't seen a lick of sandpaper, if you can see it.
Put your hand behind it.
Can you get it up on the screen?
Yeah, it's full screen right now.
It's a bit it's too much light.
Yeah, it's
you need a little shadow or something there.
Better?
That probably is better.
But anyway, I'm trying to say,
Steve.
Pardon?
What body is that?
The early Ferrari, Barchetta.
Okay. Sure.
But that's pretty smooth, guys. You know.
Oh yeah, that looks pretty good.
Now I grant you, this is about as simple a print as it gets.
What kind of layer heights are you doing? Are you doing like 0.04, 0.05, 0.06?
The wall on this is 0.07. No, 0.08, I'm sorry.
The layers.
Layers. What do I have?
Layer heights will be 0.08. The
yeah,
wall
I
will
think
be 0.8.
I printed 0.06.
Okay, that's pretty fine.
You know.
Yeah.
The nozzle's 0.4? Yeah.
0.4, yeah.
I haven't looked at my settings for so long. I've got to tell you.
You got it dialed in. You just hit print and go for it.
I am really happy with them. I mean, my measure, where'd it go? Was this little thing right here. I figured I got this to it was printing spark plug wires. I quit. You know, I was.
Wow. That came off the printer.
It came off the printer. A little 132nd motor.
Dang.
Like that.
Yeah.
And where did you get the file?
I've got a guy in Ukraine that likes building stuff, and he made it.
Wow.
That looks like the one that makes the 1/32 scale F1 cars, is it?
No, it's actually, well, you know, it could be. It's a Ford cylinder head.
I was going to say, the person that printed that, is that Paul Constanus or something?
Pardon?
Is his name? He does all the limited runs on the F1 cars.
No, he's a hobbyist that has no interest in slot cars or even race cars in particular. And that, you know, but he likes doing it, and I pay him a little bit of money, which he really doesn't want to take, you know, because he spends hours doing this. I think he just likes building stuff.
Because I've seen that on Facebook. There was someone who put up 3 different versions of the Cosworth, and that looked vaguely familiar.
Could be. Could be. His last name starts with A. That's all. That's what I know.
7.
So.
Well, my printers aren't doing anything right now, so I have a feeling I'm going to be printing out some slot car stuff very soon.
It's amazing what you can get for a bottle of vodka, isn't
it? They don't all print great. I mean, I'm the first to admit. I mean, there's, you know, I think the best parallel on these things is they're kind of like the OK casts we all used to buy. You know, not as good as RMS that Dave was doing. Kind of another step down. And once you get it printed, the prep work is kind of about the same thing. You're going to sand it. You're maybe going to fill a little bit, so on and so on.
Like a refile.
Kind of, yeah. You're going to file a little. You're going to prime it. You're going to sand a little more, you know. But in the end, you're putting your primer on after 2-3 hours work. So that's now no big deal, you know.
Yeah, I'm going to be winning the concourse.
How's your resin printing working?
I mean, once I got prints to succeed, it's fun. It's nice. It's like, it reminded me a lot of when I first got into the filament 3D printing. You know, you had to get over that hump, and then boom, you're on the races.
God, they're beautiful prints.
They are. Yeah.
They are. They really are.
Did you guys see my the Stig picture?
Pardon?
Did you guys see the Stig? I'll bring it up real quick. You know, the Stig.
All you showed us were the dragons.
Yeah, I'll show you the Stig. I printed the Stig later on.
Now, Greg, while you're looking, would any of Steve's files be able to be printed by your resin printer?
For sure. If I can fit them on the printer, yeah, absolutely. And I'm assuming that resin prints are acceptable in the.
Of course.
Why is that file not there? I just put it there. I literally just saved that file in that folder.
While you're looking, can I ask? I want to ask Steve a question.
Yeah.
If you have a .stl file and you want to make some adjustment to that file, how on earth do you do that?
The simplest program is put it in Thingiverse. I'm sorry, put it in Tinkercad.
So Tinkercad will open a .stl file?
Correct. And it's very simple to manipulate. Like if you just wanted to do dimensions, you'll find that extremely simple. If you wanted to cut holes, you'll find that extremely simple.
Okay.
You will find Tinkercad for adjusting a file, modifying it a little bit, adding bits and pieces. So easy, you won't believe it.
Nice program for designing chassis too.
Oh, it is.
Okay.
It is.
If it will open a .stl file, that's fine, because most of the 3D modeling programs don't. Well, my one doesn't anyway.
Yeah, it'll take STL or object file. Yeah, it's exactly what you want. Believe, you know.
I think STL is the native for Tinkercad. Is the native.
Okay.
Pardon?
And then can Tinkercad save that as something else? Like
it'll save it back. It'll save it back as an STL.
Oh, okay.
But there's converter programs all over the internet, so you can convert that STL to anything you want.
You can also use Autodesk Fusion 360s. I found out recently you can import STLs into that as a mesh, and you have to turn off the timeline recording, but you can then convert it, I think, to a BB-rec file. And that gives you a file then that's kind of fully editable. You can do what you like with it, and then you save it as an STL.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, Dennis, the last thing I am is a CAD guy. I've loaded CAD programs, and I swore I'm going to learn them, and I download them. It's not going to happen. I will never be a CAD guy. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
But Tinkercad is basically dry. You know, what do they call it?
Sketching.
Not drop and play. There's a phrase. Somebody should know it. Yes.
Okay.
It's basically drag and drop, and that's about as simple as it gets.
Sure.
So I'll say the main. So when I'm editing an STL, it depends on what kind of STL it is. If it's a mechanical object with straight lines and curves and things, then I'll import it into Fusion 360 because that's the CAD app that I use. And like Portals was saying, I convert the mesh to a B-rep, which turns it into a solid object that I can then manipulate by slicing and extruding and doing all kinds of manipulations. That's my way of doing things. If it's a more organic shape, then you're going to want to use, I forget what the most popular organic editing STL app is. It's not Meshroom.
You thinking of Mesh Mixer?
Mesh Mixer, yes. So that app gives you things like just kind of giving you a globe that you can like pull and stretch and push and things like that.
We use that a lot for thicknesses, thin and thickness.
Yeah, making things hollow and stuff like that.
Correct.
Yeah.
But Dennis, Dennis, what kind of modification would you do? Just I'm kind of curious.
For example, if I had an STL file that of a body that didn't have any engine detail, and I wanted to add some engine detail to it, or if I had a chassis STL file that's not the right length or the right width, then I would want to just
Tinkercad, yeah.
The main difference between Tinkercad can import STLs and move.
Yeah.
The main difference between
Tinkercad is just a basic CAD program.
It's fundamentally different in that what you're doing with Tinkercad is you are, like you're saying earlier, drag and drop. You're taking basic shapes like a cube or a sphere or a cone or whatever, and you're dropping it on your object, and then you're changing its dimensions and using it to add or cut. You can use planes and things like that. Whereas Fusion, you can do a lot of those things as well, but it lets you just pull a plane out or slice on a plane. If I was to do a chassis, and I'm sure Steve has ways of doing this in Tinkercad, if I was doing a chassis, I would pull it into Fusion, I would turn it into a solid, and then I would choose a plane to cut that chassis at, and then I would spread the parts out as much as I need them to be longer, and then I would extrude a piece between the two to make it more a solid piece again.
That's the kind of thing I'm
talking
about.
As an STL and print it.
Steve, that's the chassis. That's the motors.
Engines.
I was telling you about.
I
don't know if you.
I can't see them yet, Reese.
I'm working on it.
Oh,
that again. Okay.
Up a little. There you go. Oh, that's look pretty good. Yeah.
I think so.
Those are
it's hard to tell.
That's the person who's done it is
Kostas Jingovic.
Lift. Except they don't have the same headers at all. And they don't have, no, they're different.
They're different, but
they're 1/32 scale.
Same idea though.
Do you recognize the green cutting mat? Because sometimes the cutting mat is the way to identify.
They got the Penelope, the polycar.
Okay.
That's what you can fit in them. So it's a 3D printed motor with the.
Where were those files?
It's on. He does. He does all F1 cars.
Okay, I got it. Okay.
So he prints them up. Everything is all 3D printed. He does the whole lot.
That's nice.
And sells them, and they're all liveried, and they're dear. They're nice. Very, 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 very dear.
Good.
What do you got there, Brian?
See, Brian's got a whole bunch of chassis.
Yeah, I just wanted to show Dennis, I have no CAD skill whatsoever. These were all chassis that I designed in Tinkercad.
Yeah, Tinkercad is a great just tinker program.
I just want to make it clear that I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Tinkercad. It's just There's two ways.
Neither
There's
am I.
two different ways of doing it. With there's Tinkercad and there's Fusion 360. They do the same thing. They just
Tinkercad is it's very basic. I mean, it's a basic program. That's nice.
Yeah. This one was one I designed. It's a pod chassis, but the flex is built in.
Yeah,
nice.
Good. Mm-hmm.
It does look good.
Tune that again. I'm a magnet racer, though. So you could tune this with tape.
Okay.
But if I can design something like this, and I mean, I've done some more sophisticated things. This was something I was working on that was going to be a spare parts thing. It's basically you throw the motor on it, your gears, and you got a little rocket. This was another version of that. But this was all done in Tinkercad, and I have no CAD background whatsoever.
That's where I am.
These were all done in Tinkercad. Again, I have no skill, but I was able to do this.
How long did the chassis take to print, Brian?
Brian, here's.
This was another one. This was a thingy-inspired thing I was working on for a while that I kind of stepped away from. But again, if a knucklehead like me can produce something like this, it's great. It says something about the program. And if you've got skills, I think you could go a long way in Tinkercad.
You could, where you run into difficulty in Tinkercad and why you've got to move on to a higher level CAD program. It's like if you wanted the sides of that to be a curved, versus flat. And that's where Tinkercad has a tough time.
Yeah, I've worked a few things on that. Have you seen the featured ones they have, like the pipe program they've got in there? You can actually check the dimension of your pipe. I use that. And what I kind of did some of these is I drew the profile first and just extruded it, type thing. So
I think it's great, for modifying and working on some stuff. And like I said, I've tried to get into the next level CAD programs because they're so much better. But it's just it's not going to happen.
It definitely has its limitations, but you can do quite a bit with Tinkercad. And to me, chassis, it's real simple for the chassis.
I agree.
Well,
totally
I thank you all very much for all that information. See, Brian, you were asking us the other day, Chris and I, what we get out of this. This is what we get out of it. You guys teach us a whole lot of stuff every time we're on here. I learn something every week. Hey, Greg, this looked great.
Can you guys see this picture?
Yeah.
Okay. So on the left is the highest resolution. This is a 1/32 scale Stig figure. On the left is the highest resolution that my filament printer can do. This is straight off the printer. I did not do any, picking off of little hairs and things like that. And then on the
Can we see the top of it better?
Give me a sec. You've probably already seen it.
Just seeing the layers.
I'm showing this because this is the good part of the print.
This is the dramatic effect.
Yeah,
all right.
So on the left you see Stig.
Okay.
In the filament printer, and on the right you see the resin printer. So what happened is
this the South Asian Stig with a turban?
Sure. What happened was I had
pineapple head Stig.
I had changed the build plate and forgot to reset my first layer after changing the build plate. So it held on pretty good up until halfway through his helmet, and then it came loose from the build plate, and basically it just stuck to the nozzle and squirted out, and then finally fell off to the side. So had I paid attention, they would basically look, the same as they do from the neck down as they do, from the neck up.
Can you zoom in on the chest detail or something kind of tighter?
Oh, hold on. There we go.
That's it. That works.
Wow.
There you go.
Yeah, that's really good.
That is good. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I envy that. That's nice.
And that's basically your base resolution for resin.
Is it?
And I could go thinner layers if I wanted to.
Now, Greg, that resin almost looks like it's been cast.
Yeah,
it does.
Gorgeous.
They really are
matted. It looks like it's got a matte finish.
It is a little bit more matte, I guess. I think the main reason that the resin layers basically kind of blend into one another, right? Because it's a liquid resin. And so it's not gonna, even though when you cure one layer and then you bring it up and then you cure another layer, it's not gonna have a hard line to it. There's still gonna be just kind of a little teeny bit of liquid resin, between those two layers, right? So even if you have a really high resolution, like my printer isn't like super high resolution, it's a fairly cheap printer. You can get, higher density pixels and stuff like that for even more resolution than what you see here. But just because of the way the technology works, you're not going to see quite so defined of a line between layers. And then you wash the whole thing, and then you cure the whole thing, and then this is what you get. This is
can I show you?
No.
Can I show you my Can I show you my stick, Greg?
Go ahead.
Okay. Can you let me share?
Greg, while he's pulling it up, what resin printer is that?
This is the Elegoo Mars Pro, not the 2. That's about the 2 Pro, just the Elegoo.
That's about a $200 printer.
It's about a $200 printer, yeah.
Wow.
And the reason these printers are so cheap, which I mentioned on another thread on another forum somewhere, is because it's really simple technology. It's basically an LCD screen like you get on a cell phone or a tablet, a UV light below that, and then a resin vat, and then you have one stepper motor that brings a solidly mounted plate down into the resin, and then the screen allows light from the UV through to the resin. It cures it, and then it pulls it up, brings it down just a hair above the last layer, and then continues doing that over and over. The screens are cheap. One motor is cheap. UV is cheap. The board is cheap. Everything is cheap.
So how long does it take to print resin?
And it's cell phone screen sized, right? The reason it's cheap is because it's a cell phone screen, essentially.
Greg, how long does it take to print the resin one?
One person at a time. Paul?
Sorry. How long does it take to print the resin one?
So
compared with the other,
I forget how long it took to print that one figure, but one of the nice things about resin printing, or at least DLP, MSLA type resin printing, is that the entire bed is being exposed at one time. So a filament printer, you're squirting out over here, squirting out over here, you're squirting out over here, and then you raise up and squirt, right? But with resin, you're going layer, 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 layer. So this one stig, let's say it took 2 hours. I forget how long it took. It took 2 hours.
Wow.
I could print a dozen stigs in 2 hours because they all print at the exact same time.
Sure.
Greg, I'm not able to share because somebody else is sharing.
Okay, I'll stop.
Okay, it's yourself.
Go ahead.
How's dealing with the resin?
You know what? I'll be honest. If there are a lot, there seems to be two camps now that I'm in this. Now that I'm in resin printing, there's two camps. There's the camp that says you don't need a wash and cure station, and there's the camp that says get a wash and cure station. I started in the you don't need one, and it was messy, messy, messy. And I bought the wash and cure station, and now I'm in the buy the wash and cure station because I literally take the plate off of the printer, stick it in the washer, hit start, and then I pop the print off the washer, stick it in the curer, and hit start. I don't even put gloves on. I don't wear a mask. I don't put gloves on. I feel at this point that it's this close to the ease and cleanliness of a filament printer.
Really?
Yes.
That's interesting.
Really good.
And they have some resin.
Can you see my screen, Greg? Sorry.
I see a white stig.
Yeah. So this is printed out about 11 centimeters, so it's probably near 1/16. Apart, obviously, from the hatchet job when I tried to paint it. And obviously over primed it as well. I think it came out not too bad.
So that's on your Ender, right? Your CR6?
Yeah, it's a CR6 SE.
Yeah.
That was first attempt.
I mean, the reason I was showing that picture earlier is because when you do a filament printer at its capabilities, it looks really good, and it takes very little work to get it to look like what you were just showing off there. Just pick off the hairy bits and paint it. It's like I said on the forums, it meets the 5-foot rule, no problem. It meets a pretty good close-up, no problem too.
What is the 5-foot rule, Greg? I looked it up and found nothing. Do you mean if you looked at it from 5 feet, it would be okay?
The 5-foot rule is, if you hold it at 5 feet, it looks great. If you pick it up
okay.
next to your face, it doesn't look so great.
Thank you. Okay.
That's the 5-foot.
Or beer goggles.
Yeah, I mean, basically, right? But that's why I showed that picture with them both next to each other, because when you really put a filament printer to its capabilities, it's pretty darn good.
So what would you recommend?
I would recommend whichever. Okay.
I haven't got either.
If you don't have a printer of any kind,
no,
and you want to print figurines, you want to print spectators and tabletop gaming things and stuff like that, get a resin printer. If you want to print all kinds of functional objects, larger objects, the figurines too, but other things too, get a filament printer, because you can get a highly capable filament printer. Steve is a great example of what an Ender is capable of for $200, and it can do big things. And if you're willing to put in a little tuning work and let it just do its work while you're doing other things, it can print really nice figures too. If you want to print hundreds and hundreds of tabletop figurines and spectators, and that's really all you're interested in, then resin. Your mileage may vary.
Right, I've got some. Do you remember the old Skelextric kit buildings they done?
No.
Skelextric produced pits, the big control tower, and well, for the layout, I've been dipping them in Dettol and stripping all the old paint off of them.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the parts are missing or broken, so I gathered the best parts I could find and asked one of my friends if he could print them for me, and he said without the files, no.
Yeah.
And I went, what's a file?
So
it's something you're doing nails with.
So whenever I have people ask me, can you print this? I'm like, sure. Do you have the file for it? And Steve is familiar with this conversation. You can print any car body you want as long as somebody can make a file that's printable for it.
See, Paul, that's where you need an old geezer like me who would make a mold for you and then cast parts for you.
Well, that's what I'm doing now. I've just gone and got that stupid special. It's the blue stuff they advertise that you warm it up in water, and then you can make molds from it. That's the only way I can go forward now.
Yeah. So, but in those cases, you have to have the thing you want to replace, right? So if you have the thing and you just want to make more of that thing, then you cast and you mold and cast. If you don't have the thing and you need to make the thing that doesn't exist, you need to have some way of making that thing. So people, before 3D printers, people would carve it out of whatever and cast and mold and cast. They would just carve it one at a time. Scott?
That's exactly the online conversation I was having with Paul Miller earlier today. Is I kind of see the 3D printing, it's handier for prototyping things and creating the basis. If I was going to make more than 3 of them, I'd be back to casting them, because there's a lot less post-processing involved with a half decent resin casting than there is with, to my experience, with a good 3D item. I've got some 10th scale RC truck bodies that are 3D printed that are considered to be pretty good. And oh my God, those things are rough as a stucco bathtub. There is going to be days and days of sanding and fitting and filling, high filled primer and all of this. And
I'll tell you what though, what is considered to be pretty good has changed quite a bit over the last few years. Steve will attest to this. You got some guys out there that are churning out some absolute freaking garbage as far as
this are concerned. Come on guys, this came out today and I won't sand it. I'll simply prime it.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
That's amazing.
You know,
that is absolutely amazing.
That's really nice.
And I'm going to say it's because there's guys who've been 3D printing for 10, 15 years with their rep wrap whatevers that churn out just terrible resolution layers, just not very good prints. But for them, those are good prints. So what you got from them was a good print from them. But what printers are capable of these days are what Steve is showing off, that you've barely got to do nothing to get them paint worthy.
So for a
talking about resin printing.
So for a Neanderthal like me, who's got no computer savvy whatsoever, I have to get the wife to work the laptop for me. What do you recommend? Say casting.
Either way,
yeah, except casting. So
the first thing I would recommend is don't get rid of your wife.
Yeah, no, I'm lost without her.
Find a friend that knows.
I mean, Steve or Dennis can both agree with me on this one. Both resin and filament printers start from the same thing. You have a model file that you then put in your slicing program that it's based on whatever printer you're using, tells your printer how to print that thing, and then you stick that in your printer and print that thing. So if you can download a file from the internet, open that file in a slicing program or any other program. If you can open a file, then you know how to open a file in your slicing program. Choose default settings for whatever your printer does, and click the slice button and save it to your SD card or USB stick. Plug that in your printer and hit print, and you are able to accomplish this thing. Now, there might be some learning things, like when a print fails, what do you do? What do you change to make it not fail the next time? But that's all going to be dependent on what kind of printer it is, what model printer it is, what material you're printing with, and stuff like that. That's the learning curve that you're getting over. And everybody in the world who's never 3D printed is getting over that. And I had to get over a second one when I went from filament printing to resin printing, but it was essentially the same learning curve. Learn how to make the print not fail. That's
which was the easiest for you to do?
Neither one was easier for me to do.
That's true.
They're both Pick one.
I think the most important.
If you start with resin, filament's going to be hard. If you start with filament, resin's going to. It's the same curve. You just pick one and go with it and learn that.
Yeah. Well, with FDM printing, it's essentially, for me, it's temperatures and the Z-axis, the Z height, and also having a spool that doesn't catch on itself. The spool I have now, I have a 0, which is with the one that came out of the box. It used to catch regularly.
Yeah, I mean, and resin is the same way. I mean, I fundamentally it's the same, right? But what you do to make them not fail is different, right? You want it to stick to the build plate, right? You want the supports to not let your thing fall away, right? And you want it to finish at the end. But how you make those things happen are different between resin and filament. So
the auto leveling makes a big difference in the printer I have, because I think it would make life much more difficult if I had to do that manually. I think the auto leveling is
bed leveling.
The auto bed leveling, yeah. I think it's a godsend if you're not if you have very little experience in doing it. Yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest. I paid top dollar for a Prusa, which has automatic bed leveling and everything. I put the kit together. Everything seemed wonderful. My first print came off without a hitch. I thought, the world is my oyster. I am God. I will do everything from now on. Everything will be perfect. And then I had failure after failure after failure. And it was because I still had to learn what the perfect first level actually was, even with my fancy automatic bed leveling printer. Knowing what the perfect first level looks like on a filament printer, I'm pretty sure that I could make that happen on any 3D printer, as long as I know how to make, how to adjust the first level. Some printers, you got to turn a dial in every corner of the bed. Some printers, you got to adjust the Z offset. Some, they all have their own way of making that first perfect level, but you still got to know what the first perfect level actually looks like.
I also found giving the bed a good clean between every print I've got 99.9% IPA, and to me that makes a huge difference. Even the mobile plate looks very clean. You wouldn't believe the kind of gunk it comes off it.
Yeah, even with a fancy printer like mine, that is super important.
And Paul,
you know what? I'm gonna stop the conversation momentarily because we're at our 2-hour mark. So I'm sure we'll have lots and lots more 3D printing talk during this chat after the recording stops and future chats. But for now, I'm going to hit the stop button and we'll continue our chat. If you are viewing in the future, please come by and enjoy a live chat and ask whatever questions were never answered for you or whatever. Ask them in your comments or whatever. But for now, everybody, if you want to wave bye-bye, wave bye-bye, and we're going to hit the stop button. Bye.